there's definitely no guarantee that the pledges that were made will actually be implemented. And I think it's a very important point for us to reflect, considering that we have these types of summits in the continent happening on a very frequent basis. We're just coming out of a Russia-Africa summit, we had a US-Africa summit, and of course, now we have the BRICS summit with a very strong undertone about Africa. What it is interesting and what I'm starting to look into some of those discussions is how African countries themselves are looking for entry points, especially within the context of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and also other discussions happening within BRICS. Also, noting that many of the BRICS members bilaterally are very important investors and traders with the continent. China has been for already 10 years the largest bilateral partner with African countries. India is already the second largest bilateral partner with Africa already for some time. And even countries like South Africa and Brazil are very high in the scale. And I'm using South Africa in the sense that South Africa is part of the African continent, but how South Africa trades and invests with the rest of the continent, all of them have their own relevance in terms of trade and investments in Africa. And I think it does provide a good opportunity because it moves beyond just a bilateral relationship, let's say, that we have between South Africa and China, and moves much more to a better mechanisms that could potentially, and I think that potentially is the operative word here, that there's no guarantee once again, but it could potentially create a system that different groupings, different mechanisms that exist internationally can start complementing one another much more. And I think this is the expectation for many within the continent, but noting that development and there is still an agency and there's still a continental responsibility towards its own future. It shouldn't be just the expectation that outsiders would provide that, but certainly it becomes a very interesting part of the conversation and different sides of the conversation in reality.
آخر سؤال لي هو حول الدول العربية مثل مصر والجزائر، حيث تحظوهما حماسة كبيرة للانضمام. ما الذي يمكن أن يقدم لهما؟
I think the disappointment of countries that may not see them being included at BRICS right now could very well be managed depending on what types of justifications and explanations will be presented. Noting that even the formal applications that we've seen from some of the countries, including Algeria, to join BRICS were done without any particular kind of guidance. And this goes back to the idea of the criteria in terms of what are countries required to do. I think it would be very important for BRICS members when they decide about the expansion. It seems that we're going to see some kind of expansion in one way or another, even if the countries are not appointed or defined now, but to provide that longer term explanation of what is expected of countries that are joined BRICS and how does it bridge and link with the views and objectives of the group as a whole? So it could be a bit of disappointment in some of these countries, but I do hope, and this is much more on a hope than my actual prediction of what is going to happen, is that countries, BRICS members will be able to provide a good explanation and a clear explanation in terms of what the process would look like.